Before it used to be above 50, then it became above 40. Now I hear it from women in their 30s.
Yeah.
In terms of I have been there, I have done it, what's next?
Maybe because we're setting ourselves shorter term goals. My generation, they have very clear ideas on this is what I want out of my career, this is what I want out of my relationship. They're just going bang, bang, bang. They're just ticking boxes.
Welcome. You are watching YanaTV, where we have authentic conversations with conscious and impactful people of Asia. My name is Yana Fry, and today in the studio with us we have Dr. Damini Chawla, who is a coach, a dentist, and an award-winning speaker. And our conversation today is going to be about career transition. How can you do it any age, that switch when you move from what you have been doing to what you really would like to do, with all the fears, insecurities, and opportunities around it. When I hear about speakers, usually I wouldn't have guessed that they used to be dentists. So how did that happen?
I'll tell you a little bit about my background.
Please do.
And then we'll kind of go into the career transition. So I grew up between India, China, and Australia. And when I graduated from high school, I actually wanted to be an actor. So I said to my parents very bravely, I'm going to go to acting school, and they said, that's wonderful.
You can get an education first,
exactly,
am I right?
Exactly.
Mine said the same, yes.
Yeah. You know it. So that's how I ended up going to dental school. And it's been a really great career for me. I've been practicing in Singapore for the last 13 years. But then at some point, when I was 15, actually, if I go all the way back to 15 or 16 when I was graduating from high school, I had this vision for myself of where I wanted to be at 30, right? And it's a bit cheesy, but I wanted to be a doctor of some kind, be married, have 2 kids, and not be living in Perth, which is my hometown in Australia. So
well, I have to ask now if this came true.
Yeah, by 31,
okay.
By 31 I ticked all my, so I didn't hit it by 30, but by 31 I had.
Here's the achiever.
Yeah, exactly. Right, but then the problem with that is you look at your list and then you're like, well, I've ticked all my boxes, what next, right? And is this now what my life is going to be forevermore?
I feel it's so important, and I hear exactly that statement from more and more, especially women. Before it used to be above 50, then it became above 40. Now I hear it from women in their 30s.
Yeah.
In terms of I have been there, I have done it, what's next?
I mean, maybe because we're setting ourselves shorter term goals. Maybe women in their 50s today, they didn't have as many career or clear career goals or achievements that they had lined up. It was much more general kind of life goals. And so maybe they took a little bit longer to fulfill their general life goals. Whereas I feel like, if I look at my generation and sort of plus minus kind of 5 or 10 years, women specifically, they have very clear ideas on this is what I want out of my career, this is what I want out of my relationship, this is what I want out of parenting. And they're just going bang, bang, bang. They're just ticking boxes. And it is unfortunate because I think at some level, while they're achieving so much, they're not actually stopping along the way to even just check in with themselves and be like, okay, well, I'm ticking all these boxes, but am I still aligned with what I want my life to look like in the next 15, 20, 30 years.
And I feel it's particularly like our generation is really, I think, especially prone to that. Maybe because we also have so much more opportunities, but also social media puts so much more pressure when you go there on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn even, and you go, oh my God, everyone is so successful and has 10 out of 10 perfect kids, perfect husband, perfect jobs, makes, I don't know, XXXXX, right? So I feel there's so much pressure to just be 10 out of 10 all the time. It's tough.
It is. It's really tough. And I think, that's part of my journey specifically was realizing that I really needed to pause and take stock, right? And you're right, because you kind of look at your life and you say, okay, well, I've ticked my boxes. right? And now, how do I now set the next lot of boxes, right? What next, and how do I set those goals? But am I setting those goals based on what I'm seeing on social media and what I'm seeing of what everyone else is achieving, and this constant bombardment of this is how you should be, and this is what you should want, and this is what it should look like, right? Do I want to set my next 20 or 30 year goals based on what society is telling me to want and be and do and look like? Because I've already done that once, right? Or do I now at this point stop and say, okay, hang on a second, who am I? And what do I want? And what is the legacy that is important to me to leave behind? And then what are the sort of seeds that I can sow around me now to create that reality, right? And so for me, it was recognizing that as much as I enjoy the dentistry, I was at a point where I didn't feel like I was growing the way that I wanted to be growing. And also the fact that actually there was an element of burnout from the physical sort of, you know, dentistry is it's a very high perfection job, and you're all...
I mean, you can't mess up people's teeth.
No,
they will never forgive you for that.
Exactly. You're always dealing with people's toxic kind of communication. Like the first thing you hear from everyone is, I hate the dentist. Even when they don't hate the dentist, it's like they just feel like they have to say it to you because it's the done thing. But they're coming in there, they're saying to you, I hate you, I don't want to be here, this is going to hurt, this is going to be expensive, right? These are the things they're actively saying to you. The things that are going on in their mind behind the scenes is actually, you know, I feel like guilt and shame for having neglected my own health. I knew that if I came here sooner, this would actually probably hurt less. It would probably be cheaper. Exactly. Right? So there's all of this going on for the patient. And then as the dentist, your job is kind of to talk them down from this point, this ledge, and get them to a point where they're willing to actually open up their mouth and let you put sharp metal objects in their mouth and make them bleed willingly, you know. And as a dentist, I think it was starting to just take a little bit of a toll on me, and there was that element of burnout from the physical dentistry. But I realized that actually the human connection and the human interaction side of things I loved. So it was then a matter of, well, I have all these years of experience, right, of dealing with toxic communication and of building these really wonderful relationships. You know, because I had spent so much time working on this career, I had created a niche for myself where the majority of patients that I see are either children, so pediatric patients, or adults with very high dental anxiety. And my patient base is very, very loyal to me because they don't come to me because I do the best filling. They don't come to me because I do the best cleaning. They come to me because we create a relationship and
make them feel safe and good.
And so, you know, so recognizing that actually that's what I love, you know, that's the part of the job that makes me jump out of bed in the morning. How can I create a wider impact using that? Like, how can I harness that? So that's why I ended up at speaking, right? But I did explore other avenues, and I explored avenues such as public health. I explored the possibility of doing a master's in public health and going into policy making, right? Now, the great thing about Singapore is that they have great systems in place, right? But what that also means is that the space and the market for something like dental health related policy making is very, very small. And so how much impact are you really gonna have? You know, and the reality is that yes, I could go into public health and I probably could have pushed the envelope. It would have required me to travel a lot, you know, and I have young kids.
I was going to say, I know you're a mom of two kids,
right? So if I wanted to really grow that as a career, I would have to do a lot of travel, and I would have had to really expand my area of knowledge from just dentistry to general health. Because when you look at policy and you look at public health policy, dentistry is very low on, unfortunately, it's very low on the priority list. Because if you look around the world and everything that's happening in the world at the moment,
Well, teeth are important, but there are other more important things. Yeah.
Hunger and water and all kinds of other illness that is sort of taking the world by storm in a way.
It's a very interesting part that you're sharing here. I would like to just highlight it to make sure that also clear, for our audience, for anyone who is actually considering career transition. So what you're basically sharing is, one, you have to find what really lights you on fire even more, and particularly if you are the type that wants to make a bigger impact. And there are a variety of different ways how you can do this. And it's okay to go and try different avenues and see if it fits until you find what really is working for you, which is for you speaking. And the other one, which I like as a fellow mama, which I like even more, and I think it's particularly for women, if you have kids, you don't actually have to sacrifice your relationship with them as a parent for your career, and you really shouldn't be asked to do that. So it means that you can find a career where you feel fully fulfilled, where you're paid the way you want to be paid, and at the same time you're the parent that you want to be. You just have to keep your eyes open.
It does take a lot of courage to ask and to demand to have all of that, because I think
not for the faint-hearted here.
Exactly, it's not, and and it is unfortunate, and you see so many women who are in that position, and this is something that I actually bring up a lot, especially when I'm coaching people, that you have what lights you on fire, right? So you can identify what lights you on fire, and there's ways to do that, but then there is a reality as well, right? You have a reality, and understanding the context of what your reality is really, really important, because at the end of the day, we live in Singapore. It's an expensive city. You have bills to pay, right? If you've got young kids, you have a time constraint with kids. Then you have, you're trying to bring them up. You've got to pay for school fees and all the rest of it. So many people have the reality of supporting aging parents, and not everyone is able to transition careers the way that I could. Not everyone has the luxury to be able to say, I'm gonna say peace out and step away from what seems to be a perfectly great career and go explore something completely different.
So what can they do?
So for them, what I say is, you have to look at your reality, and you don't have to necessarily quit your job and peace out and go do something completely different, but you have to start looking at, what do I want to be looking at for the next 20 years, right? And what those things that light me on fire, how can I sow seeds around me, around my current reality, that allow me to harness this part of me and to tap into this part of me and do more things, right? Or add in aspects to my existing job that will allow me to tap into that part of me better.
I have to ask a tough question. What was the most difficult moment in your career transition?
I don't know that the toughest moment has come yet, but I feel like I've been really, really lucky in so many ways. I've had a really supportive partner. We decided very early on, when we started to talk about me making this career transition and taking time away from dentistry, we sort of said, well, what's the worst case scenario, right? And the worst case scenario for us was that I take a year or two away from dentistry and I do nothing other than spend time with my two girls, which is really not a bad situation. That gave me a lot of comfort and confidence, and also knowing from the practical aspect that if finances became an issue, right, I can just go back to the dentistry whenever I want to, right? So from that perspective, my bottom line base case scenario was very covered and cushioned. So as I've made the transition, I think the hardest part so far has been trying to explain it to people.
You mean who knew you as a dentist for years and years, and now what did you do?
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, it's funny because it's not even my patients. My patients, they're all like, oh, we really miss you. When are you coming back? But also they're like, I've had so many women reach out to me, specifically mums whose kids I've been seeing for years, and they've said, we're so amazed, we're so impressed, it's so incredible what you're doing. I did a keynote 2 weeks ago at one of the international schools here, and at the end, this girl came up to me, and she's been my patient for the last 9 years. She came up to me and she was like, oh my God, it's you. It's really you. This is what you do now. This is why we haven't seen you. And I was like, yes, it's really me. And she's like, it was amazing. So, you know, actually my patients have been really supportive and encouraging, and shared stories of how it's given them courage as well to kind of step away from the norm. The hard conversations have probably been with people a generation above. So my parents, my in-laws, some of the more senior dentists in the industry who are just like, hang on a second, what do you mean you're just not going to be a dentist? You're like, what does that mean? You know, so those conversations and really kind of explaining to them. Having said that, as they've seen me on stages speaking, they're getting it.
I'm sure they were impressed.
Yeah, I mean, it's less about being impressed, but more about just seeing someone in their element.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Seeing someone just owning what makes their heart sing.
And even here, when I look at you, you're like totally in your element, and I'm so glad that you came here today. So thank you, Damini. That was an amazing conversation where we talk about career transition, and especially what do you do when you have been doing something for a really long time and you get all education what your parents told you to get, and you became really successful, you're making money with that, yet you feel something is missing. And today our guest is a wonderful example of what is possible. See you next time.
Touch all of the wood.
All of the woods, yes, well, that's probably the wood.